Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our third volume of the Student Organization Impact Series for summer 2020. Yay! Today's session will be going over keeping members engaged, and we're going to head up to close about 3 o'clock today, so it's going to be an hour session as usual. Our last session was over how to work virtually and good techniques and good practice on what it means to do everything and work everything that you can as a student organization online. And today, now that you've learned proper techniques on doing that online, what kind of things can you do with your current membership, your active membership, and your officers right now to keep everyone engaged while we wait for fall, but also these are all great things that you're going to learn that you could still implement during the fall as well as spring semesters when you are still wanting to keep everyone engaged. Some things might be things that you do now, other things might be brand new that you've never done before. So this is a great chance for you to be able to learn any new things if you haven't already, and brush up on any skills in terms of engagement. Now I'm gonna go ahead and shut my camera off so that way more of the focus can be on the presentation as well as the slides. But if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. I'll go ahead and try to answer them at the end of each slide so that way I can say everything that I need to for the slide, and then I will get to any of the questions that you might have that you put in the chat. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to shut my video off. All right, so keeping members engaged. Here's a little fun icebreaker, or at least something to get you kind of thinking about what we're going to go over. So if you can, in the chat for me, go ahead and type what you think being engaged means to you, preferably in the perspective of a student organization. But I want you to go ahead and try to type that in right now into the chat and tell me what being engaged means to you, whether you're a member or an officer. Okay, Kiana, you said being engaged means being interested, feeling involved, feeling like you're being invested in. Totally agree. I like that. Sarah, you're saying an activity that is valuable. Very true. I think that's a good answer. Kayla, you're saying actively participating and showing up to meetings and events. Awesome. Cool. Those are really great answers. I definitely like those answers for sure. And all of those are going to tie into the different things that we're going to talk about today when it comes to engagement. Now, some of the different topics that we're going to cover is different engagement types. Now, I've broken down what it means to be engaged in 3 different types. One of them is wellness, looking at the 8 dimensions of wellness and how you, maybe as an officer, can implement all those realms of wellness to your members of your organization to keep them engaged. Another type that we're going to go over is attention and retention. So how are you investing in your members to keep them informed about everything that's happening, giving them that attention that they need individually, and then making sure that they're staying around so that way you are able to sustain yourself as a growing student organization. The third type we're going to go over is the organization's purpose. What activities or events or programs are you doing that is supporting the organization's purpose, but also engaging them at the same time? The second thing we'll go over for each type of engagement is different ideas that maybe you can implement when you are doing those different engagement types. And then the third thing that we'll go over for each engagement type is examples for those ideas that I have screenshotted for you so you can kind of see what I'm talking about with those ideas. And maybe it's a new practice that you can take back with your organization leadership as well as your other members. Before I continue, there's a couple of extra answers that I see in the chat that I want to make sure to highlight so that way no one's left out. Samantha, you said in terms of what being engaged means to you is spreading the word about events and organizations. Okay, perfect. That's definitely going to tie into the attention and retention or engagement type that we'll talk about today. Lindsay, it looks like you wrote that you're a physical activity sport organization. So being engaged means taking part in the activities and participating, of course, being a good sport. So I definitely see that being a part of our presentation today. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for your answers. And let's go ahead and get started with our first engagement type, which is wellness. So maybe all of you have heard about the 8 dimensions of wellness. I know it's definitely a topic that I've heard a lot more often, especially since we've gone into social distancing practices and in this realm of COVID-19 that we're in right now. And they're very important because of the different lifestyles that we're probably living right now, being quarantined, doing social distancing, wearing a mask when we can, sanitizing when we can. Of course, we are in our homes most of the time now because we are trying to practice quarantining and social distancing. So we want to make sure that we're also having self-care when it comes to those different kinds of lifestyles. And you as a student organization, you're able to still implement good practices of self-care for your members as well as your other officers. Now, going over these 8 dimensions of wellness, the first one will be physical. Of course, acknowledging the importance of physical activity, nutrition, and sleep. We talked a little bit about that for working virtually, our session last week, but it's definitely something good to know for right now as well. The other dimension is intellectual, recognizing creative abilities and finding ways to expand knowledge and skills. So we're cooped up in our house. We need to expand our minds. And how can we do that in front of a TV or a computer or our phones or maybe in our backyard, right? Environmental, maintaining good health by occupying pleasant, stimulating environments that support well-being. So how can we manage to alter our environments around us, whether that's in our backyard or within our house or at safely social distancing, to where we're still able to grow as a person within our wellness. Emotional is another one. So that's coping effectively with life and creating satisfying relationships. Now more than ever, relationships are so important. Whether you are Skyping, you're Zooming, you're calling someone on the phone, if you have a roommate or you live with family, being close to those people who are in your life right now is very important as we are social distancing. Financial, feeling satisfied with current and future financial situations. So, of course, not every member might be helping out with the finances of a student organization or how things are spent, but you as officers can be more knowledgeable of that. So that way, members can know that the organization is in good hands and everyone's going to be stable within their activities in the future. Social, developing a sense of connecting, belonging, and support with others. That's major, and it connects a little bit as well with emotional. So making sure that we are communicating with each other, we are socializing, we're connecting still, and building upon those relationships. Spiritual, discovering a sense of purpose and meaning in life. Of course, depending on your organization, you can take that into the more religious route, but spiritual for me in this instance is talking about what does it mean to be passionate about the purpose that the organization is trying to accomplish, right? Whether you are academic or a cultural organization, special interests, you're a creative arts organization, physical activity organization, and so on. And occupational, this still can go hand in hand with your members, but it's making sure that you're finding personal satisfaction and enrichment in what work you are doing. So if you have members or officers who are volunteering their time, their work, their planning to be able to create content for your organization, how can you make sure that what they're doing is going to be worth it and worthwhile, and they are going to be rewarded in certain aspects for their hard work? So those are the different 8 dimensions of wellness, things that you should definitely think about when you are wanting to engage your members and students. And some of these different ideas for wellness engagement. So online group activities that are live is a very great way to engage people in different aspects of wellness. Different resources that are online is YouTube, the UTSA website. I will show you the 50 things on being engaged for student organizations document later on in the presentation. But these are different resources that you can utilize when you are practicing wellness ideas. And then we'll go into examples of what that kind of could look like in our next slide. Another idea is making sure that you create a weekly challenge for members to accomplish a realm of wellness. So this can be something where you give all members and officers a list of a specific thing that they should accomplish by the end of the week, and make sure that they are doing it, that you're holding them accountable. And then the next meeting or the next week, once they've accomplished all those things, they can move on to the next realm of wellness, right? So that can be a good system of having people engaged for wellness. So make sure you are keeping track of these activities. Make sure that you differentiate the types of activities for members so that way they know what exactly they need to do. For example, for physical, is it that they take a 30-minute walk around their neighborhood safely with social distancing with a mask on, right? To practice that physical wellness realm. Have officers sign off on proof of these accomplishments so that way you are holding them accountable if they, so that way, you're making sure that they are accomplishing these activities. So online group activities, you can go onto YouTube. You can go onto the UTSA campus recreation website. If you want to, for example, if for physical, you want to have like a group Zumba session or yoga, this is a great way for your organization to come together to plan the time, the day. And the snapshot that's on the slide right now is from the campus recreation group exercise page. And the URL is up there at the top. Of course, this will be recorded, so if you want to like pause it when we post the recording, you want to copy and paste or type in that URL to search for it, you can, but it's not hard to get to just the campus rec website. I'm sorry, the page on utsa.edu, and then they have a fitness tab that you click on, and then there's a tab for group exercise. But this is a great way for your organization to come together, for example, for a physical wellness realm, for all of you to do those different fun activities and resources that your student fees pays for, even while we're still virtual. So that's a good example. YouTube, like I mentioned, is a good place to go as well. If you just type in group exercise, I know I keep going to the physical exercise example, but it's just it's a good, fast, easy one. But if you just type in that, and all of y'all can screen share someone's screen on whoever, whatever video that y'all come up with to agree on to do, that could be a great way. I know there's a lot of videos on YouTube if you want to practice like a group exercise. But that's a great way to do something that attributes to wellness and how you as an organization can engage your members in stuff like that. Now, I talked about the weekly challenge example. So here's another snapshot of what that could look like. So either on Google Drive or whoever's keeping track of everything, create an Excel spreadsheet where you are mentioning, again, I'm going back to the physical wellness example, but create a spreadsheet where you're listing the type of activity that it is, description of what it is, a link to a place where they're able to complete the activity. If it's like, for example, a video, again, physical realm. So maybe it's like a group exercise video or just a personal video that you accomplish, how long it would probably take, and then having an officer review it and then signing off on it. So that way we are able to keep everyone accountable for being able to complete these challenges. And if anything, have an incentive maybe. So at the end of the month or at the end of the summer season, if everyone of your members have accomplished all these different weekly challenges in the different realms of wellness, maybe there is a Starbucks gift card, or maybe there's a goodie basket, or anything like that, right? So definitely think about incentives on what you can do for your members, because everyone loves a good prize. Everyone loves a good free item. So that could be a great incentive to keep everyone on track for a weekly challenge such as this. The other engagement type that we're going to go over is attention and retention. So I thought this was like a funny little meme that I found on the website, but making sure that officers are giving individual and group attention to your active and current membership, and ensuring that you are doing what you can to retain them within your organization, so that way they feel that they are included, that they are having that sense of belonging with the organization. So that's the next engagement type that we're going to talk about. Different ideas for attention and retention. So some of these might be things that you do now, some might be not. So here's a good list of things for officers to do for their members. So online support groups. This is a great way for people to even dive into that the wellness, a social and relationship and emotional realms of wellness, where you are able to have someone vent about something, hear about how their week has been, if it's been good or if it's been bad, and keep these support groups intimate. So probably no more than, I would say, 5 to 7. 5 to 7, I think, is a good max for a support group. But have an officer mentor and lead these support groups, have engaging, open-ended questions about anything that's going on in their lives, and keep it simple. You don't want to overcomplicate something like this, but it's a great time for people to get closer to one another between members and an officer, and then time for them to vent, time for them to let out any emotions, or for them to know that they are supported by their fellow colleagues and you as an officer representing the student organization. Plan out a time throughout the week, or maybe a couple times a month, where you all come together and have these kind of support groups. Officer one-on-ones. I think this is a great time for officers to step up and be great leaders. And for those who are members within their organization, try to designate all the officers to have a caseload of members where they are individually reaching out to them, and either email, a phone call, preferably a Zoom or Skype, where y'all can see each other's faces, but have a one-on-one between the officer and a member where they're able to kind of have their own little support group, but also reach out and just let them know of any updates of the organization, where is it heading, what's happening in the future for the fall, how their day has been, anything that can help you to um, feel more comfortable, or anything we can give you in terms of tasks or something that you want to do to help out and volunteer for our student organization. That's a great time for y'all to have that one-on-one and connect in that way. Online committee meetings. So committee meetings, of course, are small concentrated meetings of members and even officers who have a big project to accomplish later in the semester or later in the year. So online committee meetings are also going to be a good way for you to have good planning strategies on accomplishing the project, preferably again, Zoom, Skype. And I'm going to keep saying that because I know we are all getting burnt out by um, internet and online and virtual everything, but seeing someone's face is going to be a little bit more helpful than just words on a email or a text message. So committee meetings are going to be great for you to come together and strategize and give those members something to do, so that way they feel like they are a part of the organization and you're helping with that retention, right? And of course, it's going to help you, the officer, be able to accomplish the project that you want to get accomplished. Member surveys, great way to get personal feedback from all your members to see what they want out of the organization. And this survey could be something on like Google, I think it's like forms, like Google Forms, or I know there's different survey platforms out there that you can do. But it's a great way for you to know what exactly your members are thinking and where they want the organization to go, or maybe something that is missing. And if there is a unanimous answer for something that needs to be done or filled, it's a great way for you as officers to do that and then engage those members who feel like something's missing, right? So remember about member surveys on getting good feedback to improve your student organization. Weekly newsletters is a great way to give attention to individual members, to retain them as well. So that way they always know what is happening within the organization. Make it colorful, use Canva. Canva is a great way to make things pop and very colorful and decorative. But it's a great way for you to always inform your members what is happening within the organization and even in the future. And if it's a newsletter, maybe it's even talking about what happened in the past, and maybe an officer or a member kind of wrote up a little reflection on what that event or program was about and how it's helping the student organization, just kind of like any other newsletter, right? So that could be a great way for you to retain your members. Meeting minutes is very important to have. So if you don't already, usually the secretary of a student organization keeps track of what is happening within the meeting from start to finish, and everything that was discussed, all the ideas that were brought, who spoke at when, etc. So these minutes is going to be a great way for you to retain your members by emailing these minutes to them, so that way they know exactly how the organization is growing and how it's functioning and how it's being run. So that way they're always in the loop. You know, you don't want members who don't know what's going on. But if you're sending those minutes, that is a great way for them to know exactly what was discussed, if maybe they missed a meeting, or maybe they kind of spaced out for like 5 minutes of a meeting and they kind of didn't know what was talked about. So the minutes is a great way for you to give that attention to your members. A newsletter, like I mentioned before, a newsletter is a great way for you to give attention to your members, so that way they know what's happening now and what's going to happen in the future. Here's a great example of a colorful, thought out graphic photo of a newsletter from a student organization at UNC. And they do a great job when it comes to their newsletters. Like, I think this is a really awesome example of how a newsletter should look like. So if you want ideas for a newsletter, of course, here's one. But I'm sure if you just type in student organization newsletter in Google for you to get any other ideas that you want, I'm sure things will pop up for you so you can practice that idea. The other thing that I mentioned is having those one-on-one meetings with the officer and the member, support group meetings, or if your general meeting is virtual as well, Zoom, like I mentioned in our last session last week for how to work virtually, I think is a great platform for you to practice all of those ideas and have those meetings and have those relationship bonding sessions, if you will, with all those things that I mentioned. And if you don't know what to ask in a support group or what to talk about in a one-on-one, definitely email us. We're more than happy to kind of guide you and maybe even send you some questions on what could be really good for you to ask members in a support group, or even what to kind of guide yourself with if you're having a one-on-one. We can definitely help you out with that. But Zoom is a great way to have a platform for that. Again, it's not the only one. Like I mentioned in last week's session, you can do Skype, you can do Microsoft Teams, Facebook Messenger. If if your group's small enough, if it's any bigger, then I probably recommend Skype or Zoom. Definitely Zoom, but definitely utilize your online platforms to connect with another. All right, the other engagement type that we're going to talk about is organization purpose. So, what are you doing that is pertaining to the purpose of the organization and making sure that everyone is included and everyone understands what your goals are as an organization and how to engage them in that way? Now, of course, every organization has a different purpose. Um, and everyone has a different type of organization. So you have your academic, you have your religious types, you have your political types, your creative art types, your special interest types, etc. So the information I'm about to give is I attempted to generalize it so that way it wasn't too specific to help only one kind of organization type. So I can go into explanations of what I'll talk about, but just wanted to let you know about that as we discuss organization purpose in terms of engagement. So, ideas of engagement and purpose. Here's a small list. Probably some of your organizations already do this now. Of course, organizational meetings is the go-to. So, your general meetings of making sure that everyone comes together for the general purpose of what the organization is about. But of course, we want to make sure that those meetings are productive and they're pertaining to the purpose that you're trying to accomplish. Um, we want to, of course, have that relationship bonding. So, what kind of icebreakers can you do whenever you are at these general meetings to bring that attention in from your members and breaking down those walls so that way they're more comfortable with everyone in the meeting? Um, Online icebreakers are pretty easy to do, I feel. So, Kahoot is a really fun way to do an icebreaker and get everyone engaged. Y'all can do a like a Jeopardy, like an online Jeopardy, or possibly like online bingo is possible. I know there's some platforms out there that offer a way for you to do like an online bingo, or maybe getting to know everyone. So breaking out into groups on Zoom, and there is a feature on Zoom where you can do that, where you can break out into groups and be able to have smaller groups talk about who they are, what their interests are, a little bit about them, and so on. Old and new business is your bread and butter when it comes to general meetings. So, what happened last time, what's happening now, what's happening in the future. So that way you are informing your members of what's going on and the direction that you're going as an executive board. This is a great time also for members to ask questions, feel engaged about any projects that they might be able to help with in terms of being in committees. And planning, of course, committees are going to help to do any kind of planning for your organization. So if you don't have committees already, it's a great way for you to get things done a little bit quicker. two heads are better than one kind of scenario. So definitely implement that if you are not for your general meetings. But other things that I think as good tips for you to have when having engagement for the purpose of your organization is online collaborations with other organizations. So I'm going to use, for example, a religious organizations. So a lot of them here at UTSA are connected to a bigger religious organization outside of UTSA. So if their purpose is to practice their religion and other things within their purpose, maybe this is a good time for them to connect more deeply with their parent organization off campus and see what things that y'all can get involved with in terms of pushing for the purpose of your organization and getting more of that assistance outside of UTSA. Or if maybe I'll use creative arts for an example. If you are an acting group and you know of a singing group, maybe you both can come together and collaborate on a online performance or some kind of theatrical act that involves singing. That could be a great time to collaborate with other organizations that are also on campus that have about the same organization type that you do. Great way for you to get more ideas, more brains in the mix of what new ideas you can come up with engagement and for the purpose of your organization. Guest speakers is also a great way for you to bring in a new voice, a new perspective, someone, of course, who is in the realm of the purpose of your organization. So I'm going to use academic groups for this time. So maybe for an academic group, you are a science honors society, right? So you want there to be a guest speaker, maybe even from UTSA, who's within the College of Science. So you reach out, you email the college, see who can come in to do a guest speaker presentation. And that's a great way to still engage your members. It's a new voice, so it's someone who they've never heard of before. That'll bring them in, and you're still pushing for the purpose of the organization from that guest speaker. So another great way to have engagement and purpose. Campus resources. I went over them before with the wellness slide, but campus resources, there's a lot of them on campus that are going to help you with what you're trying to do as an organization, whether that is student activities, us, the Multicultural Center for Equity and Social Justice, the Student Leadership Center, a lot more, of course, but we have resources and departments on campus that are going to benefit you in terms of your growth, but also help give you opportunities to have engagement within the purpose of your organization. So, for example, if you are a service organization, you do a lot of volunteer services, we have our office, which is the UTSA Volunteer Services Office. And if you go there, great way for you to get ideas and to be involved with a project that maybe they're doing, or maybe they can help you create your own volunteer service project. And bam, you are pushing for the purpose of your organization because you are a service organization. So another great way for you to have that kind of engagement and purpose. Academic college collaboration, I mentioned it before, but if you are an academic or an organization that pertains to something that you can learn that's on campus, so maybe you're a dance group and you want there to be a collaboration between you and an office or a department for dance. I know we do have a few dance organizations on campus. Great time for you to collaborate with that office or department in dance and see what y'all can contribute in terms of collaboration that will help your members be more engaged in the purpose. So that's another great idea. So I mentioned it, oops, let me go back. So I mentioned it before, but here's a short little list of different student affairs offices that help students as well as student organizations grow and be more engaged with not only themselves in the organization, but with other students around UTSA. So we have the Student Leadership Center, Volunteer Services, Campus Recreation, us, Student Activities, Multicultural Center for Equity and Justice. So I'll use a special interest group. So maybe the Black Student Union will want to do more engagement with their members and then push for the purpose of their organization. So this is a great time for you to reach out to the Multicultural Center for Equity and Justice if you are a cultural or a special interest group, and that can give you great ideas and a good doorway to walk through for those engagement ideas. Student activities, we have events throughout the year. Of course, we are still, waiting on some solidified information about what we can or cannot do in terms of our events and activities because of COVID. But for example, last year we had Best Fest. We had the golf cart parade. We had window wars. Those are all great opportunities for you to market, for you to push for the ideas and the purpose of your organization. So the golf cart parade, you decorated the golf cart in the image of your organization that helps supported spirit, pride, and tradition. So that's a great way for you to push for the purpose of your organization and still market it to the rest of for the campus, right? So campus rec, if you are a physical activity organization, most likely you're around there a lot, or you already work with coaches or staff that are there. So keep at that if you are a physical activity organization, so that way they can collaborate with you on other ideas that you can do if you're not already doing them already, right? So I mentioned it before earlier in the presentation, but earlier in the not summer, sorry, later in spring of this year, we sent out a email with this attachment to it, and it is, I believe, 4 or 5 pages long, but it's a document that gives you 50 different ideas and ways to be engaged with your student organization. So it goes from number one to all the way to 50. And at the end of this document, we have necessary links that will help to support any of those different activities that we mentioned throughout this document. So we are more than happy to send this out to you. If maybe it's been lost in your emails, or maybe for some reason you didn't get the email, we are more than happy as an office to send this to you again. We're trying to figure out a way to have it publicly on RowdyLink for you to just download it that way under our documents section for the student activities RowdyLink page. I tried the other day, but for some reason, I think the document is too big for me to have uploaded it. So we're gonna find a different way where it can be online, where you can access it whenever you want. But of course, email us if you want this document like ASAP. So that way you can utilize it if you haven't looked at it already. But a short list of it is already here on this first page. So a virtual museum. So if you don't know already, different popular museums like the Smithsonian, I want to say the Whitty, but like the Louvre in France, the art museum there, they have virtual tours that you can take, and that would be a really fun way to engage with your fellow members. I know it's online, but it's a great way for all of you to explore different things that are happening in the world, even though you're not there in person. But a virtual tour for a museum would be really, really fun. Netflix parties, I know organizations have already started doing that now, but great way for all of you to grab a snack, maybe some popcorn, a soda, candy, and all of you watch the same movie at the same time, right? But those are different examples that are within the activity and engagement document that we have here. Again, email us if you want this, if you didn't get it, or if maybe it was like lost in email. All right, so that wraps up our engagement workshop for today. Um, our next session will be July 7th at 12 p.m. And that session is going to go over student organization basics. So these are information that you may have heard when you attended a new student organization orientation, as well as Rowdy Sync. But this is a great way for any newer officers or people who may be a little rusty on what we talked about at those orientations and Rowdy Sync on the very basic things to remember to do as a student organization, and then navigating how those processes look like. For example, if you want to reserve space on campus, or if you want to know more information about what this cost center thing is, if you don't have one already, and just different ways on remembering your requirements as a student organization. So, of course, re-registering, but then going over the disclosure of solicitation form and your state mandated risk management training stuff that will be due for the new academic year. So all that stuff is going to go, that's going to be talked about in the student organization basics session, which will be July 7th at 12 p.m. Again, it's an hour long. And again, just like any of our sessions, it'll be on Rowdy Link for you to access when that time comes. I want to give everyone a big, big, big thank you for coming today. I hope some of the ideas and examples that we were able to present today are going to be something that you take with you, or maybe something that for you to think about in terms of engaging your members as well as your officers. Our email is there on the slide. Get involved at utsa.edu if you want to request that 50 ways to be engaged document, or if you have any questions or concerns about anything, more than welcome to email us. And our social media is right there, hashtag UTSA Stu Act. We are on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.